Yes, peace and love, everybody. Peace and love. Welcome back to Salons Studio, a cultural space that celebrates excellence, unity, and the spirit of joy through an unapologetically Black lens, with a special focus on brilliant guests from all walks of life. You know what time it is. I'm your host, Psalm, broadcasting live from Piscataway Land, aka Silver Spring, Maryland, and on the digital turntables, we got the homie, the bro, Nick the Wonder.
Yo.
Nick, what's going on, brother?
Peace, my dear brother. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. I'm just getting my light situated because it's wild, man. Since the last time we did this, it's gotten like crazy dark. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
what
I gotta
happens.
figure out the light situation.
That's a whole episode by itself. Daylight savings time.
That's right, man. So, hey, we have an incredible show for everyone today, featuring some of our country's most talented and finest artists and leaders. Today, we will be joined by none other than Wendy C. Goldberg, aka WG. We also have Idris Goodwin. Yo, this dude, talent out the. And we have, if that isn't enough for you, we have Brian Quijada. Okay, so we have like a triple, like a trifecta for you. But before we bring them on, we're gonna welcome a very, very special guest to the screen. Every salon, we like to amplify Black-owned restaurants and celebrate, the folks in our community who are really serving up the good food. And today we have an expert in that field joining us. Anela Malik is the curator of the popular blog Feed the Malik, which highlights the DMV's Black restaurant community and marginalized perspectives in food. Here to tell us more about her awesome work, please welcome Anela Malik.
Hi.
How you doing, Anela?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was waiting for your applause. That's what I was waiting for, because you more than deserve the applause. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. One of the first impulses that we had when we created this series was to really highlight Black-owned restaurants, because a lot of people say, hey, how can we help this Black Lives Matter movement? And one thing I say is, hey, you can support Black businesses. That's one thing that you can do, and I'm glad that you agree. So can you tell us a little bit about how that belief inspires and inspired your work? And can you tell us more about Feed the Malik?
Absolutely. So I am many things. I'm a food blogger and writer, and a lot of people also say that I'm an advocate for social justice. And I like to talk about food in a way that's rooted in history and culture and politics instead of just separate from it. And so in that, I have to recognize that Black business owners face similar or the same difficulties that Black folks face in our society, due to systemic discrimination and marginalization.
Absolutely.
So I have a particular focus on marginalized business owners and Black-owned restaurants in DC. As a food blogger, it was clear to me when I came here that this was a thriving community that wasn't being given adequate coverage or support in the mainstream food media space.
Absolutely.
So if you think about DC or the broader DMV region, if you think about this as Chocolate City and how many incredible things there are to eat here, a lot of DC's foods are intricately tied to the Black community. And so if you're thinking about supporting Black-owned restaurants in the broader DC region, you're actually just talking about supporting an essential pillar of the food space here.
Beautifully said. And we're in a very special historic moment right now, right, with this Black Lives Matter movement. How would you say this movement has affected the local food scene in the DMV?
So that's difficult, right? Because in June, we saw this huge outpouring of support for Black-owned businesses. And many Black restaurant owners I know said they got a big bump in business. And since then, it's kind of steadily dropped off. And so part of what I use my platform for is to try to ensure that we keep up that attention and interest and investment over the long term. And so I always try to tell people that it's not about changing your life so that you only buy Black. It's about changing your life so that you systematically invest in and support Black-owned businesses in the same way that they've been systematically ignored and excluded in our society for decades.
And I love what you say, that it's not about the short term, but it's about sort of a longer time horizon. Like, you have to really look down the road a little bit. On your website, you say that through food, you felt like you could tell complex, compelling, diverse stories. And as a storyteller myself, that really struck me. Can you share just one interesting food story that you've come across doing your work in the DMV?
So in the DMV, wow, that's hard because
I
I come
know
across interesting food
so
stories
many,
every
I'm
day.
sure.
So I'm actually going to pull it out of the DMV and tell the story about why I started blogging the way that I do intentionally. Because at first, right, like any experiment, I was just winging it. I had no real strategy, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about. You know, I wanted to find my voice, and I was living abroad in the Middle East. And I was blogging about food. And it was a way for me as a personal endeavor to explore the culture and get out of the expat bubble, right? And because of my blog, friends of mine who are Americans who had never thought about traveling to the Middle East, they were scared, or they just saw it as a place that was like maybe too dangerous or violent based on what they had seen on the news. They saw the food and the stories that came with the food that I was sharing. And so they made multiple trips out to this region that was entirely new to them. And it really kind of like through food, I was able to build a little bit of a bridge. And that's when I had this kind of epiphany, right? That food is a unifier in a way, and that we can use it to tell stories about things that maybe people otherwise wouldn't be interested in.
Awesome. That's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that. So I think we're going to go ahead and bring back Nick the Wonder now, because you've gone above and beyond, and you've guest curated our food tonight. So thank you. I actually ordered the seafood pasta from All Set in Silver Spring, a restaurant specializing in New England inspired seafood and Southern style barbecue. And you can see the information right down there on the ticker. Nick Wonder, what did you order, brother?
Man, first of all, if you're not following Feed the Malik, need you to go right now, Instagram at Feed the Malik. She suggested for me spices, West African grill. Amazing. My first time there. I got the salmon platter with jollof rice. And their signature spinach. Can't go wrong with any of those choices. You hear me?
Love jollof rice.
So thank you once again. Once I said, she gets the cosign, folks.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. And Anela, so why these two places? Why did you send us there? And I'm glad you did. Why?
So I feel like in a lot of talk about the DC food scene, the focus is on these marquee properties that are multi-million-dollar investments on the waterfront, for example. There's nothing wrong with those places, but that doesn't mean that there's not incredible food at carry-out spots, at places out in Maryland, in Virginia, at small mom and pop shops. And so All Set is a family-owned restaurant in Silver Spring, and Spice's Kitchen, I actually think is like totally slept on because it's a carry out and delivery spot, and their food is phenomenal.
Awesome. And where are you eating from tonight?
So I saved my favorite for myself. So the Shell Shack Seafood is in Brentwood, Maryland, and they have incredible Caribbean infused seafood. And so I always get the lobster sliders because they're so decadent. They have a little bit of spice to them. And then they have plantain fried rice, which is, it's a hearty meal, but it is so good. And all of their seafood dishes are phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to try that too. And everyone at home, make sure you check out these restaurants' websites in the comments and get your orders in this weekend. So definitely keep supporting our local Black restaurants. Nella, before you go, please tell us again how we can support your work.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Feed the Malik, my website, feedthemalik.com. Or I always tell folks the best way to support independent artists, creators, writers is to support them financially. So I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/feedthemalik, where you can invest in the work that I do, which is really the work to help support small and marginalized business owners in DC.
That's what's up. So thanks for sharing that information. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
And we will see you in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Peace and love. All right. So we are going to keep it moving. So please welcome a trio of multi-talented, multi-hyphenate artists and leaders in our field. They are all excelling in many things: acting, playwriting, directing, producing, leadership, and they're all super booked and blessed. So I am especially glad that they could fit us in today. So please welcome today's guest, Wendy C. Goldberg, WP. Yes. Idris Goodwin, the homie. Yes, brother. And Brian Quijada. Yeah. Oh, yes, with the throwback, MJ in full effect. So glad to have all y'all here. First of all, how's everybody doing?
Great, man. Great. Now it was you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you saw everybody's great response.
That's a very real. That's a very 2020 response. It's like, how you doing? You're like,
right. We'll dig a little bit deeper. You know what I'm saying? We just giving them just the intro right now. In fact, we're about to do our mental health drink break. So, we like to toast up, man, to kind of just get the vibes right. At home, please pick up your drink and go ahead and join us as well. I would like to toast to the spirit of unity, and I'm feeling that vibe right now, because as I look at the three of you, like, to me, you all represent not only unity, but like the spirit of hip hop. You make me think of hip hop when I see the three of you. And I know that's one thing, like a love of hip hop is something that all three of you have in common. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but cheers to unity, y'all.
Cheers
to unity.
Unity.
Word up. So let's get our conversation started. So as we're chatting with these great guests, we definitely hope that you want to know more. Please go ahead and submit your questions in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll answer a few of them at the end of the program. So you're all eating from Black-owned restaurants in your community. So can you tell us what parts of the country you're in right now and where you're eating from tonight? Wendy, Dub G.
Dub G. Okay, so I'm in Brooklyn right now, and BK. So I'm in Prospect Heights, and there's this great place, Cheryl's Global Soul, that we spent a lot of time at, and she's just around the corner. So that's where I'm going to be eating from tonight on Underhill Avenue, Underhill and St. John's. So very excited. She's got some incredible food, and she's just, everyone's hustling here, like, trying to keep their businesses open, eating on the street, so I'm very happy to be supporting her.
That's what's up. And Idris, how about yourself, brother?
Yes. I am broadcasting to you all today from Colorado Springs, Colorado, the unceded territory of the Utes and Cheyenne peoples. And I'm actually I actually ordered my whole Thanksgiving dinner from Spice Island Grill, which is a Caribbean restaurant in Colorado Springs, which I discovered one year. I took my wife for Mother's Day dinner, and our minds were thoroughly blown. And she was like, "Yeah, all right, I think I'm going to stay in this marriage after that." No, I'm kidding. So we ordered a whole jerk turkey. We're going to get the Johnny cakes. We're going to get a whole grilled snapper, mac and cheese, a little bit of Ital stew. It's about to be on. Yeah, man. So I'm very excited. So shout out Spice Island Grill.
Shout out. That sounds delicious, man. And Brian, how about you?
Yes. I'm here in Manhattan, Upper West Side, unceded territory of the Lenape. I ordered from Bodega 88, Latin infused comfort food. And I've actually never, the Upper West Side is a very tight knit community, and it's super white. But what I was looking at when I was looking at, like, I love the Upper West Side, which is like our kind of neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. There's a bunch of restaurants up in this joint that I didn't even know were Black. Like there's a place that I really love called Uptown Pokey, which is great, man. I love me some pokey, but I didn't want to order that tonight. I was feeling it tonight. But Bodega 88, this is a first for me, so I'm really excited to be tasting their food.
Word up. All sounds good. So let's start to just dig a little bit deeper now. I mean, with so much going on in the world right now, right? Pandemic, Black Lives Matter movement, a new president-elect, thank God, right?
Allegedly.
If the guy leaves, if he moves out, if he's like squatting, or threatening to squat. I mean, so we'll see, right? But what are each of you doing to stay rooted in this moment, you know, and to just stay grounded? Idris.
Well, you know, so I am hunkered down with my family, and so I got my wife, I got my two babies, I got a 8-year-old and a 1 and change year old who is just a terror, who's like in everything, and knows it, and just will hit you with the Kool-Aid smile. He'll start cheesing, and you'll be like, "I'm not mad at who's mad at you." And my mother-in-law, who's a painter, and so that's really just been the thing. Is just being in this situation with so much generational diversity. You know what I'm saying? It just keeps everything. It's just never boring. And so that's really been the lifeline. I mean, the work. You know, I'm always. It don't matter. Like tornado, hurricane, pandemic. Like I'm still gonna be like, now what rhymes with Juneteenth? You know, like I don't. You know, and I'm gonna be mad about something, and I'm gonna be like, "These white folk," you know what I mean? So it don't matter really. And you know, so I've been, you know, every day I try to just stay in the day, and if I can get through the day, great, my life is good, you know. And I try to get a little air, I try to get a little exercise, and I also allow myself the space to just be hopeless and upset and frustrated and all of that too. So yeah, it's a struggle, but it's a blessing too. Beautiful struggle, like Talib Kweli say.
Word up. And Brian, how are you staying grounded and rooted?
Yeah, well, you know, me and my lady, we live in a studio apartment, man, and once the quarantine hit, you know, she was working from home. Like, you know, luckily she kept her job, and everything, you know, all those on the road jobs for me kind of went through the window, and I kind of just adapted to her, man. We live in a studio, so I was just like, she's waking up at the time that she's waking up. I'm like, okay, cool. She's making coffee for both of us, and then I went like going to my corner of the room and started pumping out music, man. And I've been writing. I've just been writing a bunch of things. You know, some, you know, little small commissions that come in, or some just passion projects. But the making of the music and writing rhymes and stories has been really helping to keep preoccupied, man. And I think building ammunition, right? It's like all about, at this point, that's the name of the game. And also, you know, I was kind of dabbled a little bit in like video, like at what is the video component of my music before. You know? And now it's like, cool. All right, now I want to really start learning how to add that to my arsenal. You know, like how do I continue to get better at making videos to offer content? You know, at this time.
Word up. And Dub G.
Yeah, well, I mean, very similarly to Idris, my family were here in a relatively small Brooklyn apartment, my partner, and we're all sort of like on Zooms all at the same time. My son's in the 5th grade and he hasn't gone back to school. So he's, you know, in 5th grade in his room. I think he's doing a lot. I mean, he's doing the best, you know, he's on like 7 different video platforms at the one time. And I kind of need his help on most things, but, you know, so that's keeping us very occupied. But I will say that, you know, I'm running the O'Neill, and I'm trying to move the programming forward during this time. And, you know, it's been very, very challenging. And the biggest thing that I feel like I've been able to do, and it really has helped me focus on sort of how to help, I guess, has been, I've been raising a lot of money for theater relief for all my friends who,
that's dope. Yeah.
You know,
one time for
their
sure.
jobs went away. Everyone's jobs went away. And, you know, once it became sort of clear that mine seemed to be okay for a little while, I was in a position to be able to really leverage that for my friends and to really, so it's been great. We've been raising a ton of money through a lot of different events and a lot of different just direct, you know, asks to, but my strategy has been with all of these different like corporate things I've done in addition to theater, I've been really asking for their support to the theater, back to the theater community. So whether it be video games or sports or anything like that, it's about, you know, right now, this is a moment that's going to last far longer than any of us expected. And I don't want this generation of artists to not be supported and find a way to keep people, you know, engaged and just put food on their table. I mean, you know, it's pretty serious after the unemployment subsidy ran out, you know, it's been very difficult. So, so that's something that's been keeping me sort of like looking ahead and trying to help.
Yeah. No, and I, you know, love this idea of just looking to see where and how can I help. I mean, just aside from just the personal, you know, benefits of feeling good, it's like really giving back to the community in that way is really, really dope. So the three of you were involved in the world premiere production of How We Got On, right? Idris wrote it, Wendy directed it, and Brian was one of the stars. Can you talk about how that collaboration came together and what that experience was like? I actually saw a production of it at Forum Theater in Silver Spring, directed by the homie Paige Hernandez, Nick's sister, actually. Nick's
no way, are you serious?
Yeah, that's.
I knew it. There was a reason. That family.
That family's incredible.
Yeah, straight up.
But I loved not only that production, but the play itself, and really felt like I was like, another tribesman. Yes.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I was like,
you already know.
Like I immediately got it on so many different levels. But how did the collaboration come about? Yeah.
So, well, first off, this is just total timeout, like hip hop nerd, just rando nugget. Song, has anyone ever told you your voice, you're throwing me off because you sound just like this rapper Acrobatic? You know who I'm talking about from The Perceptionist?
I don't,
you know
but I'm gonna have to look him up.
You're tripping me out because like your voice, like I'm like, what is happening right now? Yeah, Nick know who I'm talking about. Don't he though?
I'm sure.
He sounds just like him. It's crazy. Some don't know. Okay. All right. Sorry. Back again. Sorry. Hip hop nerd session is over. All right. So So how did this start? So listen, I was living in Iowa City, Iowa at the time, and I had and so I was coming. You know, before that, you know, I had been in Chicago for about 7 years, and I lived in Chicago for 11 years, but for 7 years, I started a theater company, a collective with a group of friends, and we were like doing that whole Chicago storefront, down and dirty thing that is rich in the Chicago tradition, right? We were doing it ourselves. We were making up as we went along, but we had actually built like our own sort of like grassroots kind of audience, you know, pay what you can, and a lot of diversity in our audience. We were doing the thing. And so then, you know, met my wife, and she and I kind of began another chapter, and we're kind of moving around in different places. And so my theater life kind of got disrupted because I lost my crew. So I'm living in Iowa because of her. She was getting a degree in nonfiction writing. I went to some playwriting program, the MFA program at Iowa. I went to some of their Monday night readings from students, and I remember I saw, you know, at the time it was like Jen Silverman was in that program, and all these big dogs, right? And that kind of rekindled it. And so I said, I'm gonna be here for a few years. Ain't nothing else to do here except go to the University of Iowa. So and I had no formal playwriting training, whatever the fuck that means. But anyway, so I got into that program, and the first thing I wanted to write was I was like, I'm gonna write this play that's been on my mind for years, which is I was like, I want the experience like the same way a DJ takes existing things and blends them together to make a new thing, like a set is essentially its own story. What if you treated scenes and characters in a story that way? So what if you had a story and then you took that story and chopped it up and you let a DJ put it back together. So that was the premise. And I was like, this is the, and this was something I couldn't write in the context of my scrappy storefront theater company. So now that I'm in this kind of proper playwriting program, we just lost some. That's because I started, this story is too long.
We lost the host. Oh no.
He's just like, nah, it's whack.
You got this. You got this.
He's like, nah, I'm good. Anyway, so I'm just gonna tell it to the huge studio audience. So anyway, so I said this is a good opportunity because this is a playwriting program. There's a workshop space, all of that. And so I wrote this show in the back of my mind thinking, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to take this back to Chicago and do this with the homies. Adjacent to that, I met these two tremendous people who played a very big part in the genesis of that play. One is Wendy C. Goldberg, who is on the left of my screen, but the right of my screen. So anyway, so she was talking to me. I mean, we're both from Michigan, both from the greater Detroit era, both have Chris Webber stories. And so we we connected around just this conversation about hip hop and the possibility of hip hop on stage. I just remember that, of just being like, it was just a click of like what, like there's this thing that is clearly dope and clearly the bomb in theater. The great thing about theater is that it can absorb any art form, so it's dance, it's costume design, it's lights, it's music. It has space enough for everything, because all we're doing is telling stories. Welcome back, brethren.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, man, you know how the technical, new world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So anyway, so Wendy was telling me about the O'Neill and really encouraged me to apply to the O'Neill, which I had never heard of. I didn't really know anything about it. But then she was like, yeah, August Wilson used to kick it. I'm like, well, if it was good enough for him, it's good enough for me, goddamn. And so then insert, I meet Brian Quijada, who was a student at the time. Brian and I were in a class together, and I heard him beatbox. And so I knew he could act. I knew he could write. I knew he was a smart dude and very handsome gentleman as well. And so I heard him beatbox, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I'm writing this play right now, and there's a character who's a beatboxer, and that's like an important piece of this. And so I invited him to be one of my readers when we were workshopping the play at the University of Iowa, and he bodied as he does. And so, flash forward, the fates would have it, got into the O'Neill, and we started having a conversation about who do you want to cast to be? I said, I know this kid. He's very talented. I know this kid, this young
I remember man. Too. I was very suspicious.
She was like, who do you know from Iowa?
I don't know him. I don't know him. And, and he, usually like we have, like these professional actors, and he was like just coming out of school, and I don't know. And then
she trusted me.
I trusted you fully. And then who's like walking Brian around at the opening night party saying, he's your star. He's going to be a star. Right? Remember that?
I do remember that. It was great. We had old fashions in hand and schmoozing, cruising, and boozing.
That's right.
Yeah. Big fan. So that was it. And just the last piece. Not yet, because I got to end this long ass story. There's another piece, a very important piece to this. And I want to make sure everyone heard that, is that Wendy trusted me. That there was conventional wisdom, but at the end of the day, she was like, there might be something in something I don't know. There might be something to find. There might be something to discover. And I think that is an important thing, especially in a moment like this, when we're going through tremendous amounts of change, particularly in our industry, is we got to embrace that spirit of adventure and what we don't know, and be okay with the fact that like more than half of the time it's gonna not really pan out. Also too, not to throw shade, but anyway, I'm not even gonna go there. So anyway, all right. So as it was happening, I had this other wish, right? So when I started at the University of Iowa, I remember there was another playwright that came into me, came into the program with me, named Basil Crimmendall. Shout out Basil Crimmendall, because I know Basil Crimmendall, you're watching right now. Basil Crimmendall and I were chopping it up on the street, and we were like, yo, Actors Theater Louisville, Humana Festival, that would be the dopest. I would love to be in that someday, going on and on and on. And so I was very clear on that for the jump. It's like, man, I would love to see, they were like, so who do you want to come see your big O'Neill debut? Who do you like? Do you want the Atlantic? Do you want, the Mark Taper Forum? And I was like, you know. And I said, I want the O'Neill, or I want the Humana Festival, because I was like, because I want the whole industry to see what it is. And so Sean Daniels, who was the interim director at the time, came out and saw it, and we chopped it up, and sure enough, got into Humana. But it don't stop there either. Is that they were like, Idris Goodwin, who do you want to direct? I said Wendy C. Goldberg, and you know, and Sean Daniels was like, he was like, yeah, that would be cool, you know. He's like, and he was like, are you sure though? You know, he was like, are you sure? And I was like, absolutely, right. And so, because I do it, we were, and this is why this story's so long, because I think the road is intentional, like, because there were major choices made on that road. Is that we stuck to this thing of like the same level of understanding, intuitive understanding that was there with Brian, with Wendy, you know, and what you're saying too, where you're like, it's a fellow tribesman. I just think it's so important. Like, to me, that's the most meaningful thing about how we got on, is the road it took. I've written some plays that have been really good, that have had weird roads, and you've never heard of those plays again. There's something about this road. And so sure enough, we had Brian in the show. We had Wendy C. Goldberg directing. Shout out Deanna Bouye. Shout out Terrell Sledge. Shout out the wonderful Crystal Fox, that original 4, you know. And we took Humana over that year. And don't let anybody tell you about all the plays that popped that year. There were some plays that year, but they wasn't this shit. And we were the illest thing on you know, on how, I don't know math, on 8 legs. That's what anybody say. How we got on was the illest shit to ever happen in America that year. We were the play of the Obama era, and I love it.
And that,
and he's switching it up,
inspired a costume change. So
boom.
Wendy, what was it about that play and Idris as a playwright that made you say, okay, well, yeah, I'm definitely doing this joint?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like, it kind of brings me back to our work together, Psalm. You know, when I first met Psalm, I was a very young, you know, producer director in DC, and I was really trying. I was a hip hop lover, consumer lover of the cult, like lover of all of it, and I wanted to find just exactly the spirit of what Idris is saying. Like, how does that work on stage? Like, how can we get that on stage? And you know, I met you in DC, and you know, we did a bunch of stuff in the basement, the old VAT room. You know, we did the Hip Hop Theater Festival, DC version of that. And so I was sort of always looking for something that I felt like we could kind of translate it into the theater. And so I guess, you know, it was sort of fate. Like when I met Idris, the description of what he was making sounded really fascinating to me. And so it was really about, also, I mean, he, as you mentioned, like we're both from sort of the Detroit metro area, and there was a lot about that, you know, and there's a lot about our families, you know, for different reasons left the city into the suburbs. And it was about these, you know, kids who were in the suburbs and felt sort of displaced from their urban center. And so, and that is a huge piece of growing up in Detroit. So that's, you know, that's kind of how it all started. And yeah, I was so fortunate, like to bring Brian, who I was, you know, not sure, right? And then, yeah, bodied it. That's going to be my phrase now, bodied it. So yeah, and then now it's true. Like it was a beautiful journey, and we had, we were so ready. I think that's the other thing, is when you're working on new plays, I always talk to my directors like that I teach, you know, you want to be ready when you start producing the play. And we were so ready. We had already gone through all the steps, so we could just have a great time and really finally see it sort of flourish. And so we did have a good time that particular production. So that's how it all started. And it was certainly something that it was so musical. The other thing is, Idris says, oh, you know, I trusted him. He trusted me. You know, he let me, I knew that Idris was probably going to see many different versions of this play, because he approached it a lot more like a musician, in the sense that like, we're going to sort of like riff on things, and we're going to, there was like but it was all so, I mean, that makes it sound like it was so loose, and it was super obviously specific and structured, you know, beautifully. But there was a kind of a sense that like, this was the group of artists that were doing this draft, and there's going to be a lot more beyond that. And so it always felt like a lot of freedom in the process.
100%. So Brian, your piece, your solo play, Where Did We Sit on the Bus, which I have not had the pleasure of seeing yet, but trust me, that's definitely on the list. That's a piece that elevated your stature and visibility on a national scene. Can you talk about the genesis of that play and how that piece evolved? Because I understand now other actors are starting to do that piece as well. So that's continuing to have a life of its own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it in a lot of ways it starts with how we got on. That as a young actor, right, in college, undergrad, meeting Idris and him offering this play, which was unlike anything I had ever seen or acted in Iowa or in any other, in my young career, any other places before. That was like a huge deal. And I remember graduating and getting that call from Idris being like, they're going to invite you to the O'Neill. And I'm like, cool. That sounds great. And then I look up what the O'Neill is because I didn't know what it was either. And I'm like, oh, snap. Yeah, I better get good at beatboxing. Like, I better get really, really good. And then
like, who's O'Neill? Wasn't he all right? He a good dude?
And then another year passes, and he's like, yo, now we're going to the Humana Festival. And I'm like, cool, that sounds dope. And then I look it up, I had no idea what it was. And I'm like, oh, snap, like, my beatboxing still isn't good enough. I need to get really good. And so in a lot of ways, that kind of show spoiled me because I was, it felt so close to home. It felt like, the story of kids like from the Midwest loving hip hop and getting their hip hop from TV is a story that you don't typically hear, that like I felt so incredibly connected to. So anyway, years later, after moving to New York, because of how we got on, getting an agent in New York, moving to New York, and sitting on the couch waiting for the phone/email to come in, being like, man, I just got to write something. I got to write something. Idris, I can't just be like, Idris, what's my next amazing role, And so then sitting on the couch and being like, cool, what's the story that I have to tell, and how am I going to tell it and use this particular set of skills that I have, which then became Where Did We Sit on the Bus. And now, it's I thought, I'm of the Idris school of thought, that Idris Goodwin school of thought, that is just like, we write plays that you can perform in garages, and whoever passes by and catches it, like, that's who you're going to see. And like my that show fits in a bag, right? Like, I can take that set up on the street and do that show. And I think it's out of that, like, making something with what you've got. Two turntables and a mic.
Yeah.
Exactly. And every year now that passes, or, I've been doing it for 5 years now, and it's been amazing, and it's been a wild ride, because my show deals, my parents are from El Salvador, and I talk about my parents, and immigration obviously resurges as hot topics every, and especially during this past presidency, it a lot. So people, I sit on a fence between being incredibly happy and fortunate that people continue to want to produce it, but also really sad that I have to keep preaching the same thing over and over, and it seems like nothing changes. But I'm really happy now, man, in this new era where, like, I think I'm taking a little break to focus on other things, and yeah, man, Actors Theater of Louisville, like, crazy. This is like a full circle moment. Actors Theater of Louisville is the first company to do Where Did We Sit on the Bus without me, and it was supposed to be done live, but now they've switched it to a digital presentation, a virtual presentation. The incredible Sanchez, who O'Neill alum as well, who is playing the character of Quijada. So that's pretty sweet. It's been a wild ride, and another one that's changed my life.
So now, I mean, the way we do theater is changing now, where we have to incorporate more digital content and streaming and things like that. And there's also been changes in terms of this reckoning that's going on now in our theater community. How has this reckoning, impacted each of your visions for theater?
Who wants to start? Who wants to kick that one off?
Yeah. And let's go back to Wendy, because I mean, you as someone who is like, right at the head of an institution, you know what I'm saying? That's all about play development? Like how has
So I think
that
the thing that
impacted
I've really learned during, I mean, you know, one of the things I've been reflecting on, let's just put it that way. I wouldn't say that I've arrived anywhere specific, but I have really thought a lot about, you know, what everyone's been talking about, what people have, the demands, you know, what people have been saying. And I've been thinking about the fact that, you know, it needs to be more than just content. Obviously, like we really need to be thinking about diversifying from like in every level. And I feel like it was interesting coming out of an organization like Arena Stage, where I always felt like that was part of that culture. And then I sort of took some of that for granted when I went to other places around the country and realized that, oh, actually, there's no, you know, people of color on this staff. There's no people of color on this board or diverse peoples on this board, you know, in a BIPOC, what have you. And so I feel like, you know, that like next level of making sure that the people that make the decisions and the people that are holding these institutions accountable to their decisions, you know, that we make sure that that's reflective of our whole country, you know. And so that's the thing that I have always, you know, I think like I'm pushing for, and I think like we're getting closer in the places that I'm working with closely. But at the same time, you know, you see how far everyone has to go. So that's sort of the things. And I think I've always been interested in it. It is my responsibility and my role to come up and to present stories that are from all over the place. And that's been really important to me. It's a national conference. We want to be looking at the moment in time that we're in from a lot of different perspectives. And so that's been, you can see that reflected in the choices and in the work that's happened. But I also can see that, you know, there are ways in which we have to get better around who is sitting around those big tables or little tables or like half tables in our case, you know, but whatever those are, the people that are the stakeholders, it has to be a really inclusive group. And I think we've made some really good progress, at least but there's still, like I said, there's a lot to still be done.
100. Idris?
Yeah, I concur with what Wendy's saying too. I mean, you know, the We See You White American Theater document is historic. I mean, it's you cannot talk about theater in America and not bring that document up. And for me, it felt like, you know, when I first read it, I'm like, oh, this is the conversation that we, you know, at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, there's a little restaurant and bar right across from the Bomer Theater called Martino's. And that's where everybody goes after the show. That's usually where like the actors and the technicians and all the insiders go after the shows and kick their heels up. And I'm like, oh, this document is basically like the conversations that people have been having on the balcony at Martino's at 12:30, right? You know, for years, for decades. It's an inside conversation that was very organized, very clear, and so it, more than anything, much like August Wilson's The Ground in Which We Stand, like it's just a major document that, you know, that to me is really kind of telling a story too. So, you know, I appreciate it for that reason alone, that it's just contributing, and someone culminated all those Martino's conversations. Somebody culminated and provided a solution. Here's one way that we can do it. And, you know, some theaters have said, you know, word, we hear you, we're going to do this. Some theaters have been like, you know, but I think no matter how theaters respond, you can't ignore it. You know, it's now going to be like in the lexicon of when we talk about the work, right? It's like, well, you know, in the We See You, I don't go full on with the We See You, but like on page 13 of the We See You, I do like this, and this, you know, and someone's going to improve upon that and build upon that. And so, you know, I think it's long overdue. I think that, you know, one time, and I'll just leave you with this one little anecdote. You know, one of the things I remember, there was this moment I was sitting in a theater, and I was sitting next to some white folks that I knew. And one of them leans over to me and is like, you know, look, there's a lot of white folks in here. There's a white person saying this, right? You know, who's basically the key, same demo, everything that as everybody else in the audience. And I just found myself saying, like, you know, this is by design, right? You know, I'm like, this is not some peculiar, I'm like, oh, wow, how strange. It's like, there's a reason for this. And to me, that's what we gotta, now's the moment to begin to unpack the why Like the why, so to Wendy's point about seeing the difference in Arena, if you look at the history of Arena and you learn about Zelda and all that, you see that like this theater has a history of intentionally integrating casts, right?
Yep.
So of course it's something, and you in Chocolate City and whatever, but there's a reason why that I think to me is what this moment is about. It's like we're past the guilt and this, that, and the third. Like let's undo the design. Let's do some new architecture on this whole thing and stop pretending like this shit is not by design, because it is.
Well said. And Brian.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like it's easier to say like let's blow up the system and start from scratch, right? I think it's got to be strategic and formulaic, and there are great minds, I think, working at it. The people behind the WCU American Theater, but it also, it's like the small things. It's like, I think I'd like to think that that even just in art making there is a lot of social justice and like activism that happens even just in art making and even in speaking out. But like certain things, like I've called out like the New York Times for year after year not hiring a BIPOC critic to their full-time staff because these stories need to be seen need to be reviewed by an appropriate eye. I think one that just doesn't. It's not like an umbrella of white gaze. Because it affects our pockets. It affects everybody. Like, those reviews affect the pockets of so many artists of whether these plays will succeed and whether they'll continue to get produced. And it's small steps, right? So if they hire somebody that's of color, the next step is just like, cool, well, now you tokenize that person. So what are you going to do now? Like it's the next, it's just this, it's small steps. It's very easy to be like, let's blow up the system, start from scratch, set it all. But like, it's the small things and like these small victories that I think I'm really hopeful about in this time is the lead up.
Can I just say, I mean, really, Brian Quijada, it's not about blowing up the system, my brother. It's about remixing the system, much like the Selected does, and how we got on. You feel me? You got to deconstruct this shit and then reconstruct this shit and make it funky. Okay. You gotta make it funky.
That's right.
We ain't gotta do away with all of it, but just take the bass line out, take the drums, add a little hi-hat, a little cowbell.
There's a lot of things that are amazing about it. It's just about the tweaking and this is an opportunity where like everything's kind of, we have the ability to like relook at the structure of it all,
Yeah. And I mean, some folks are clamoring to burn the whole thing down. You know what I'm saying? And start from scratch. Some people are taking the more, let's piece together and keep just the essential things we need. I mean, whatever way you look at it, like you said, Idris, shit needs to change for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like big changes. Right on cue.
That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah. So let's see some changes.
I think this is the perfect time for us to bring back Nick Wonder back into this vibe. And for us to move on to our top 5 theater productions. So in hip hop fashion, y'all know we do top 5 MCs, but since we're theater artists, we're gonna do top 5 theater productions. Top 5 theater productions. So let's go ahead and start. Let's start with Dub G.
Okay, y'all, here we go. We're going in. All right, so the production that changed my life, that made me want to do this, was when I was in high school. I went to the Stratford Festival. I saw King Lear. There was nothing on stage, and there was just these tremendous actors, and it made me realize that you can blow up an imagination with like very little and just great words. I got the chance to see the original Angels in America. That was like, that changed my life. I want to give a shout out to the first musical I saw at the O'Neill, my first year, the very first workshop of In the Heights. my mind. And yeah. The other piece we did at the O'Neill that I still feel really strongly about, and was just under the tree in the Edith Oliver Theater, was Jen Haley's The Nether, which I think really was our first piece we sent to London, and happened all over the country and New York and everything. And then I just want to say, we talked a lot about it, but really, I'm going to shout ourselves out. Got to. How we got on. Actors Theater Lingo. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was so good. And it really was. It solidified all these relationships and everyone, you know? It's amazing.
Nice five. Brian Quijada, top five.
Thank you, top five. I'm going to start the list with how we got on, considering it's solidified 20 great friendships for me. It's up there. The very first show that got me into theater, and I still hold it to be like my favorite musical ever. It was my first production. It was Cabaret, Alan Cumming version, which I got to see on my birthday a few years back when they revived it. It's just the best. I love that musical. I'm gonna say 3 is Passing Strange. I love that. I kind of dig like the kind of soul story taken into this ensemble piece. Stu, a Spike Lee joint. So moving on to A Strange Loop, which I just saw last year.
Yes.
Strange Loop is out of this world, fantastic. I kind of had never seen anything like it. Shout out Michael Jackson, amazing writer. And I'm going to say the Godfather of, top five, the Godfather of solo performance, huge inspiration for me. Freak, or another Spike Lee joint, John Leguizamo's Freak.
Yeah, nice top. And Idris, bring us home.
Oh man. Okay. So first of all, I see what you're doing here with the top 5 things, but I'm just gonna throw my MCs in there just because it's against my religion. When the words top 5 come up to not talk about these MCs. So real quick, Kendrick Lamar, Metal Face Doom, Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, Notorious B.I.G. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into
Erykah Badu.
Yeah, Badu. This is a recent thing that I've come to. This is after the Versus joint with Badu and Jill Scott. I realized Erykah Badu is a hip hop artist.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. She is not neo soul. She is not R&B. She's not soul any more than Outkast is. You know what I'm saying? Like Outkast is funk. Outkast boom boom boom. But she is a B girl. She is a MC, yo. And when you hear her rhyme, she rhymes sometimes, and she has bars too. And when not any MCs. Anyway, all right. So Erykah Badu is in my top 5. Fight me. Okay, here we go. The homie Wendy C. Goldberg brought up Stratford, and I've just remembered like that was a seminal part. When you grow up, it's a rite of passage. When you're a kid growing up in Southeast Michigan, you go to Stratford. If you were of means, you go to or if your school is of means, you take that field trip to the Stratford Festival and in Ontario. And I saw Cyrano de Bergerac when I was a young buck, and Cyrano. Flash forward, there's a little bit of Cyrano in how we got on. This idea of somebody writing for somebody else. I took that from Cyrano. All right. Raw Goddess, the homie Raw Goddess, show called Low, which is a solo piece. Very underrated show.
I love that play.
Low is very underrated. And I teach. That's a show I teach I've been teaching for years in my classes. So shout out Raw Goddess if you're watching.
Yeah.
Mojada by the maestro Luis Alfaro started Oregon Shakespeare Festival. It was probably just when I saw that show. I've never been so wrapped up in something before. And like when the end comes, I screamed. I was like, ah! It was like nothing I'd ever done before. And on that OSF tip, I gotta also give a shout out to Karen Zacharias and her show Destiny of Desire. That show is hard body karate. That show is so ill. Mike Daisy's How Theater Failed America was a show I saw in Chicago at Victory Gardens and was just saying everything that I felt. about the American theater at the time, and to give me that. I think about that show all the time, and it's a lesser known show of his, but I think a really important one. I think that was 5, but I'm gonna do a 6-man. I got two 6-men. The homie Brian Quijada brought up Passing Strange. That's how we got on Does Not Exist Without Passing Strange. It broke me out of my self. I like quit writing plays out of frustration. I was like, it's not for me. This white man's thing. Da, 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 da. And then I saw Passing Strange, and it was like, all right, dust that computer back off, fam. Like, you got work to do because you can do whatever you want. It's like, oh, this is a band that wrote a play. So write a play that's on some hip hop shit like you would make an album. And then also, I got to give a big shout out to where do we sit on the bus? And it's not just because Brian Quijada is my guy. It is also just a powerful piece of theater. Really quick story. My father-in-law is a New Mexican Chicano man, doesn't see a lot of theater, working class gentleman, watches football and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And when Brian brought that show to the National Hispanic Cultural Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico, shout out Trick Like Theater, I took him to see it, and he loved it. I mean, it blew his mind. Like, just to see like another Latinx man on stage talking about like man stuff, just coming of age and all that. I know it hit him deeply, and I know I had a show in that same festival, and I know he liked Brian's show more than my show, but he wanted to just say it, and I was like, I know, of course, why wouldn't you? Because that's you up there, like you're seeing yourself represented. Because I know he don't see himself on Monday Night Football or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then he saw this cat, So I that was a real special moment for me as his son-in-law and Brian's friend, to see that merging of these two men that I know in different worlds having this thing. So anyway, there you go. That's my list of 7. I took liberties.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. So before we move on to questions, I just want to take a second to go ahead and shout out next month's Salon, which is our season finale. We will be joined by the phenomenal director, leader, theater goddess Camila Forbes of the Apollo Theater. Will be our final guest of the season. So definitely tune in for that. So our first question from the audience, Wendy, what was it like working on Red Dead Redemption?
Oh yes. It was great. It was crazy. And so this is a video game that I directed like the last part of, like before they released the game, and did a bunch of work on it and worked with an incredible team of people. But no, it was unlike anything I've ever done, because it was motion capture. They were wearing like the suits with the motion detectors, and I was working, it was very high tech. But at the end of the day, it was really about just working with the actors on scenes, which felt very familiar to me. So all the technology aside, it was like these scenes are really important in the game. So I know we've got some players here. BQ is a player, so he knows.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is top 5 favorite games of all time. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
Tricked out my horse, gave him braid.
Cool. And we have a question here for Idris, a very, very serious question. Who you got, Gucci or Jeezy?
Oh, Jeezy took that. Jeezy took that. His. I mean, listen, Lemonade is one of the best beats ever made, and In the Trap is like one of my favorite songs. But Jeezy's just, his sound is just, his stuff's more produced. It's just more. He's just a better songwriter. He's a better songwriter, and he was really the one who fostered the reconciliation, which was huge. Yeah. So I gotta go Jeezy on that one.
Bama said, let's do a real estate versus. I don't know if y'all saw. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead back and watch it. But
yeah, watch it.
Yeah.
Brian, real estate versus.
Brian, what are you working on next? The audience wants to know.
Oh snap! I'm doing. Well, there's 2 things. I got to shout out Reg Douglas. Studio put this together, helping out the studio. And shout out to Reg. He's directing Arizona Theater Company is doing a reading of my musical Somewhere Over the Border. It's brand new. It's about my mom crossing the border in the 70s. But it's a mashup of my mom's story and the Wizard of Oz.
That's dope.
And, super pumped about it. Shout out to Reg. And I'm also working on another a hip hop concept album called Exodus, about the Underground Railroad that led south into Mexico. like 1850s play, two-man live loop show. So I'm really super pumped about that, and that can be. We're releasing a track every single month. We're releasing it on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. So
I need a copy of that.
Yeah,
it's a dope concept too.
It's
a dope concept too. So, hey, I want to thank y'all for being guests today. Y'all were dope. So, let's give it up one more time to our guests, Wendy C. Goldberg, Idris Goodwin, and Brian Quijada, and let's bring back Anela Malik as well. Thanks for joining us, Anela.
Hey, fam.
And shout out to the Doris Duke Charitable Trust Foundation. They're building demand for the arts grant. Also to everyone at Studio who made this event possible. Shout outs to HowlRound TV for streaming us today. Make sure you check out tonight's highlighted restaurants, All Set Restaurant and Bar in Silver Spring, Spice Kitchen West African Grill in Edgewood, DC, the Shell Shack Seafood in Brentwood, Maryland, Cheryl's Global Soul in Brooklyn, Bodega 88 in Manhattan, and Spice Island Grill in Colorado Springs. Again, thanks y'all for joining us, and definitely come back and see us next time with Camila Forbes on Thursday, December 17th, 5 p.m. Of course, shout outs to Nick Wonder every time. Hey,
yes.
Hey, Nick, do you think that's an instrumental beat that Idris or somebody can drop a quick free?
Yes,
Look at that.
Please make it be Idris. Or Psalm, or BQ, or Anela,
BQ, or even Nella. Yeah.
Pass it. That's what you know. Come on, Malik.
This is how we do it on and on and on. Sitting back, chilling in Salon. Yeah, you know we coming with the groovy flow. Come check us out, see us at the Studio Theater. It only gets weirder with the technique. Want something to eat? Go check out Feed the Malik. Word up to my brother in Fife. I do it all night, kicking the freestyles that you like. Yo, you know I'm ill with the words, cause I hang with Brian Q and Wendy C. Goldberg. Yo, I hold words hostage. Do it like this, yo. There is no stoppage. Every time I do it, they be like, give me more. I be like, I gotta check with my main Psalm 24. Kick down your door, have you seen her? Yo, see my new plays at Arena or wherever. Do it drop like the weather. Do it like this every time, he's so clever. Yo, and I'm doing my thing. I'm so ill, my nickname is COVID-19. And I got no damn bling, but I do it every night. I freestyle, don't sing. Yo, cats be hesitant, faking the funk like they don't think Biden is president. Yo, you must be embarrassed. Go tell your parents. Everybody know we got a black woman named Harris, who's now our vice president. Remembering, don't think I forgot she Indian. Yo, shout out to South Asian. Do it like this. Show my man John Blazing. Yo, you know my name, man. Not a Caucasian, but shout out all people. You know we all equal. First time, last time, prequel and the sequel.
I'm really happy for you. I'm let you finish. Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Yo, that's how we ended it.
I'm really happy for you. I'm let you finish.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Thank y'all for joining us. This is how we do Psalm Salon every time. Nick, play us out.
Oh.
And at home, you can just vibe out. We will see you next time. Make sure you get some good food. For real.
You about to lose your job. You about to lose your job. Get this thing. You about to lose your job. But you are entertaining me for nothing. Entertaining me for nothing. Entertaining me for nothing. Get this thing. You about to lose your job. You about to for nothing. You about to lose your job. Get this thing. Shots nameless, but you ain't even got no job. Cause you fight. You about to lose your job. 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 Is this shit worth you losing your job? You about to lose your job. You about to lose your job. 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 Is shit worth you
Look at us. We come so far. Yeah. I remember when we was just little kids, banging on the pots and pans, about to get it by both of us. Oh, nobody really knew it then, ignoring us, looking toward the heavens, forgetting to cultivate what was within us. Oh, I know we had it rough. Sometimes all we had was us. Even when they split us up, I saw you and I see you now. And you've come such a long way. Oh, congratulate yourself. Watch out, world. You've come such a long way. Wow. Look at us. We've come so far. Yeah. I remember when we was just little kids, banging on the pots and pans, about to get it.